Jon Gosselin shockingly revealed his daughter's painful separation from him at an emotional moment. He spoke with conviction, delivering a message that exposed the anguish and optimism that many parents bear in silence, all while holding back tears. What Jon wants his daughter to know, the unspoken realities about their broken relationship, and his open confession are all topics we'll be covering today. The tenuous relationship between a father and daughter. With 8 children, a nationally broadcast show, and a marriage that seemed to be radiating, Jon Gosselin seemed to be living the dream. A calm storm, however, was gathering beyond the dazzling lights. The constant demands of filming and the added stress of caring for many sets of twins or sextuplets eventually got to them. Jon felt torn between wanting to shield his kids from the cameras and needing the money from the show to make ends meet. Everything changed when his marriage to Kate was announced publicly in 2009. Tragically, Jon's 8 children also felt the effects of his loss of normalcy. Among these, his daughter Maid was the one who brought him the most anguish. There was a time when she admired him. The father and daughter are no longer in touch with one another. Maidie and her twin sister Cara have been completely absent from Jon's life for almost 10 years, as he just admitted in a devastating interview. No one is aware of how deep this separation goes. Jon doesn't see it as just a matter of children maturing and becoming distant. He battles this wound every day. He thinks back on the special times they shared as father and daughter. Even a simple phone call has left him longing. There was already a lot of sadness, but it became worse when Mate accused her brother Colin of being cruel in a public statement. Jon attributes the introduction of these words to Kate's influence. A strong "I don't accept," this was his response. He asserts that the Colin he knows does not match up with Maidie's story. Jon said in the same interview that he felt helpless. A seemingly insurmountable chasm has opened up as a result of the media's intense focus, personal grievances, and legal disputes. He recounted how Kate made him sit on the bench, cutting him off from 6 of the kids. In contrast, Colin and Hannah decided to move in with him, creating their own path in life apart from their siblings. Although such intimacy brought Jon solace, it also exacerbated the growing chasm that separates him from his other daughters. At the age of 22, Maidie has gone a long way from being the lively little girl viewers saw on television. Her view of her family's past has evolved along with many other things. When she does bring up Jon in public, it's usually with a lot of anxiety. A fresh start is what Jon craves. However, it appears that years of suppressed animosity always cause any effort at contact to fail. He implies that his children no longer speak to him because of Kate's story, but he refrains from accusing her of everything. He understands that every kid has their own opinions, yet those opinions are influenced by their complicated history. And what was the outcome? An emotionally broken relationship that brings Jon to tears every time he thinks about how fast it all fell apart. Once a comforting presence, Maidie's father now stands by, watching from a distance. Not sure if she will ever ask him back. After the limelight, tensions rise. The peace that Jon Gosselin had hoped for from life away from reality TV never materialized. Upon the conclusion of the show, his every move became subject matter for gossip websites. Despite picking up odd jobs like staging and waiting tables, he was always the target of curious onlookers. The change from being in front of the camera to going about his regular life was shocking, he says. Despite this, his family drama ensured that he was never truly out of the spotlight. Jon thought that the fact that Kate persisted in filming spin-offs with their children further drove a wedge between them. He said that after the divorce, he wished to protect the children's privacy, but Kate had different ideas. Keeping the program going gave her a sense of financial security. Jon was always seen in a negative light whenever he attempted to voice his objection. As claims of parental estrangement emerged, the situation became more tense. Jon was concerned that he was gradually losing involvement in his children's life, particularly Maidie's. Even though her family had a tumultuous past, Maydis is now quite outspoken on social media. A mix of anger and sadness washes over Jon as he reads each public speech, according to Jon. Midway through 2023, Maydis raised allegations on Collins's conduct, implying destructive tendencies, which Jon vehemently refuted, even though he acknowledges that Maydis is of legal age to draw her own judgments. He nevertheless blames Kate of giving Maydis these impressions. But he still questions whether there's any way to fix what's broken. A quavering voice betrayed Jon's recent direct speech to Maydis in an interview. "I still love my daughter," was his response to the question of if he had anything to say to his estranged daughter. "Let her know that, please." However, he also begged for Colin's forgiveness, claiming that Mate did not have any direct experience with her brother's life for the past few years. Jon claims Colin has grown tremendously, going so far as to join the Marine Corps. He thinks the claims are nothing more than relics of their troubled history. The intricacies of the law persist throughout. Any straight reconciliation is obstructed by custody arrangements, protective orders, and the sour aftertaste of their public drama. Jon admits that he has tried to contact Maydis and Kara multiple times, but has received no response. Although he doesn't hold them solely responsible, he does bring up the impact of negative tales that continue even after the cameras have stopped. Sibling relationships that take divergent routes are one element that complicates matters. With sticking with their dad, Hannah and Colin develop an unshakable relationship. The others remain with Kate and seldom speak to Jon or one another. When they entered maturity, parents hoped their children would grow up to be self-reliant individuals who could think for themselves. Rather, past hurts continue to fester. Jon seems exhausted yet determined in interviews. Ignoring other people's scripts is something he refuses to do, he says. All he wants is an opportunity to talk to Maydis without prying eyes, cameras, or attorneys muddying the waters. Every day, he struggles to make sense of whether or not that dream can be fulfilled. Inspired by the mixed feelings of longing for a united home, he has not yet found hope. Struggle in the shadows. Jon Gosselin's Pennsylvania mansion is a long cry from the glitz and glamour of his TV days. Now, it's just a little room where he and Stephanie, his fiancée, attempt to keep things calm. But the news from outside can quickly break that tranquility. Every time his children resurface in the news or share something on social media, he is whisked back to the unsolved mayhem. Jon struggles with a long-standing question in private. What caused things to become so intricate? The difficulty Colin faces is at the heart of one of the most distressing parts. Colin, who had been a shy, overlooked kid growing up, reportedly struggled with behavioral issues in his early adolescence. His placement in a specialized facility by Kate is still a contentious matter. According to Jon, Colin was forced to be secluded and he was not adequately consulted. Colin eventually moved in with Jon, and they talked about Colin's experiences with emotional distress and maltreatment. Colin has always had Jon's support, who has insisted that his son's problems were misread and ignored. In the long run, Colin's will to make things better was on display when he joined the Marine Corps. Nevertheless, the schism between his siblings persists. The recent accusations made by Maydis, which suggested that Colin posed a threat, severely wounded Jon. He says that Maydis can't possibly have known Colin for so long to make such claims. These comments, in Jon's opinion, reveal more about Maydis' animosity against him. He's been trying to be composed, but the pain is obviously still there. Jon is clearly suffering as a result of these public fights, as Stephanie can attest. According to her, he's a helpless dad who's always concerned about his kids' impressions of the world because of the media. She is also honest about his shortcomings, that Jon does, on occasion, allow his anger to control him. On the other hand, she perceives a father who is eager to spend time with his kids. Even on days when joy briefly returns to their home, old grudges can be rekindled by the next news cycle. According to Jon, a lot of this struggle goes on behind the scenes. Curious eyes cannot access critical documents, personal messages, or the interminable legal maneuvers. Jon thinks people's views would change if the whole truth came out. Still, he's wary of spilling the beans for fear of jeopardizing his tenuous prospects of reuniting with Matey and the others. Jon stays away from detailed mental images of family reunions because of how painful they are for him. He thinks it's easier to celebrate little wins, like Colin's development or Hannah's positive attitude. He describes these times as his lifeline, yet the pain of losing Matey, in particular, never goes away. Rarely does Jon reveal his deepest fear that she won't recognize him when they meet again. The father, who once rocked his daughter to sleep by singing her lullabies, is now preoccupied with the idea of whether or not love can overcome the deep divisions that exist between them when they're not together. Despite the constant sadness, he holds on to optimism every day. Still, optimism, like familial bonds, can be flimsy. Unwavering, Kate Gosselin stands by herself. Kate Gosselin has been described as fiercely independent, domineering, and protective over the years. She doesn't say much, but her actions speak louder than words when it comes to Jon. She maintained her media appearances after the divorce, citing the necessity of the money to support her children. Some thought she was more interested in becoming famous than in taking care of her children. The argument put out by those who support Kate is that she ensured that they had food and a roof over their heads, regardless of her motives. Jon thinks Kate should reconsider a lot of her choices, especially her eagerness to maintain camera coverage. Maddie, Cara, and the sextuplets, he claims, were deprived of a normal upbringing due to the constant scrutiny. The children, according to Kate, were at ease during filming. She thinks the show gave them opportunities they wouldn't have had otherwise. Opportunities, presents, and trips started rolling in as soon as they appeared on TV. Kate never budgeted when Jon raised an objection, that he was merely resentful of his diminishing role. His voice started to shake, and he had trouble staying calm in the middle of his statement. There was a brief lapse into a man's inconsolable sadness as the self-assured father role vanished. As he spoke up about the pain he'd been denying for a long time, the cameras caught him wiping away his tears. Jon started to speak with a quiver in his voice as he expressed his desire for her to understand that his love for her has endured regardless of her opinions. I still keep waiting for her to call.